When players lose games in League of Legends, they often point to the big moments for why they ended up failing. They think things such as, "Oh man, why'd I follow up on that stupid play? I know better, I was playing flawlessly until then." Or they'll blame themselves over a far more devastating mistake. "I'm so stupid, why'd I forget to ban Viego? Nice 200 years, Riot." Don't get us wrong, it's understandable to immediately jump to the big moments in a match that felt like the deciding factors in whether a game was won or lost, but an important skill to learn is also to be much more aware of the little moments in a game, where small choices might have big long-term impacts, such as your decision to farm just a single minion wave. We're gonna be honest, we went into this guide thinking it'd be more of the same. Here's some ADCs, look at how they missed farm, don't do this and you'll climb elo. What we found was something that should have been left buried, and far more sinister. In the year 1947, on a late summer afternoon, there was a rodent who went by the name of Twitch. Along with his mistress, Twitch was making the rounds and scaring any of the usual ruffians who would constantly come into his field to try and take his crops. By all accounts, everything seemed normal. Nothing could prepare us or Twitch for what we were about to see. After supposedly finishing his farming duties for the day, Twitch turns around to head into the jungle. The following is not for the weak of heart. Standing just 20 feet behind him was a minion wave that seemingly appeared from out of nowhere. This next photograph wasn't uncovered until years later, when the events of that night became a popular urban legend amongst the locals of the town. It seems that a photographer who was in the area happened to take an aerial shot of what occurred that night. At the time, it would be the last thing you'd look at in a photograph like this, but this was soon to be the first proven incident from the abnormalities that would soon be known as the 19-minute phenomenon. What happened that night will forever remain a mystery. No one can be certain as to why Twitch left that minion wave, and in a tragic turn of events, fate made sure there'd never be a way to ask. Twitch and his mistress died in a house fire 3 days after the events that we saw. And the photographer responsible for the photo was found brutally murdered soon thereafter. All his rolls of film mysteriously gone, with only a single one remaining. No one was ever found suspected for the crime, as the only piece of evidence left behind was a haunting message written in the victim's blood. ADCs have no agency. 11 years after the previous events, there was a young girl who moved into the town going by the name of Lulu. Briefly mentioned before, the area was dangerous, so Lulu's parents had purchased a guard dog that she'd owned for about 18 minutes now. Its name was Kog'Maw. Lulu invited all of her friends to the Dragon Park to show off her new pet. Everyone loved Kog'Maw. After a joyous afternoon, they all head their separate ways. As they do, pay close attention to the neighborhood bully, Kane. He was always envious of anything Lulu got, and would often destroy her dolls and clothes to torment her. Who knows what he'd do if he got his hands on Kog'Maw. But it seems that this time he went a completely separate way from where Lulu and her new dog were headed. One could even say that we have excellent information as to where the enemy assassin is on the map, or something of the sort. As Lulu lets Kog'Maw take care of business and clear some waves, the poor dog starts acting a bit strange. You see, although handheld satellite technology wasn't a thing at the time, even a kindergartner could pinpoint where the incoming enemy wave was, based on the location of their own. And as such, any decently trained pup during those years would be able to as well. But for some reason, Kog'Maw started acting really strange. He was in a massive rush to get back home to convert his 2 cloth armors into a warden's mail. This is definitely not normal behavior. Once again, it's not very clear why Lulu and Kog'Maw stopped playing outside and rushed straight back to their homes. All we know is that it happened at the exact same time as Twitch's odd behavior. And the tragic circumstances that befell Twitch after this ordeal would repeat as well. On that very same day, Lulu and her pet Kog'Maw lost that game, died shortly thereafter. The 19-minute mark claimed 2 more innocent souls, and more importantly, any chance we had at finding out the truth of that night either. While previous events had occurred that shared similarities to the Twitch case, none had such an emotional impact as the death of a poor girl and her dog. Everyone's eyes were on the case now, and people demanded answers. With no clues to go on, there was unfortunately not much to be done though. That is, until the most recent and weirdest case of all. While every victim prior died in a weird accident soon after their inexplicable actions, one man who suffered eerily similar circumstances happened to survive. The victim was a 25-year-old man, identified as Lucian. Like before with the previous cases, the start of his activities seemed fairly standard. Although Lucian could spot the shadow of a mysterious man in the distance, he wasn't afraid to proceed to tend to his crops. He'd learned very well that as long as you steer clear of such individuals, that there really isn't much to fear from them. As Lucian is finishing his duties, strange things begin to occur once again. When interviewed, here's what Lucian had to say about the following events. As I was finishing up the first round of crops, obviously I knew that there was more to do, but I can't for the life of me remember what happened next. I know people recorded my actions, but there's no way that could be me on the screen. I know better than that. When I finally came to my senses, I was just idling around in the middle of the street, like one of those hooligans you always hear about. No one treated me the same after that. Although Lucian didn't die in a freak accident after his actions like the other cases, his life was most definitely over. LCS imitators were not looked at too fondly around these parts. His business never recovered from the damage his reputation had taken. A couple of years later, Lucian found himself hanging around the wrong type of crowd, and well, you know the rest. Okay, let's get back to normal. While that entire segment was mostly for our own amusement, believe it or not, there was a point we were trying to make. Oftentimes, when talking about farming properly, players will retort and exclaim, "I don't mess up like that," or "That's not the reason I'm losing." Let us be clear, yes you do, and yes it is. Do you have any idea how difficult it would be to do another topic where we're discussing a mistake happening at the exact same time every single game? For example, an ADC not positioning properly in a team fight at specifically 32 minutes in the game. It would take us hundreds of replays to find appropriate examples to make that kind of guide. And yet, ADCs mess up farming and extra waves so often that finding examples of it happening at 19 minutes was so absurdly easy, it took no time at all. There was an overabundance of games in this ELO range featuring a player missing a wave for no reason at this exact time. Just think for a second about that. What does that actually say about how often it happens in a game if we can find an insane amount of examples at exactly 19 minutes? And remember, those are all Platinum ELO games. If you're a lower ELO than that, then you really need to take it to heart. Players in higher ELO than you are constantly missing waves in the most ridiculous ways. If their gameplay isn't that flawed, think about how easily you can improve if you just fix this issue. And for the Platinum players watching, yes, some of the examples we chose were incredibly obvious mistakes that you may not personally make. But there were plenty of examples we didn't cover that were less obvious mistakes, which might be plaguing your gameplay. As a quick example, take a look at this game. Here, we can clearly see Xayah's entire team dying in bot. For continuity's sake, check the time in the game as she's about to mess up. It doesn't matter if Xayah should have been bot, that her team died, etc. All that matters is what Xayah can see right now. She has perfect information of where everyone on the enemy team is. So why is she basing here? Why is she not checking the Raptor camp, red, Krugs, and rotating top to continue farming? Or even continuing to push mid as well, depending on what she sees the enemy team do. Instead, she just bases when there's no need to and wastes a precious opportunity that players may often overlook when analyzing their own gameplay. And believe us, we can easily keep going with the countless examples we found, such as this poor Tristana also falling victim to the 19-minute curse, refusing to continue pushing to at least cross-map a tower. Ultimately, our goal here is to simply get you to focus on these smaller moments, far more than the crazy random stuff that happened in your games. These are the fixes that will actually help you climb. Alright guys, before we wrap this up, let's tell you a little more about skill caps. So, we offer a 5-division rank up guarantee, and think that's a pretty crazy thing to offer. It's like a gym membership guaranteeing you'll get ripped. Your local gym would go bust if they offered that, right? Not us. We've offered this for years because our service really does work. It works so well, in fact, that we're able to produce by far the largest catalog of premium league guides on the internet. We add over 20 videos a week, with over 1,600 guides curated into over 100 courses no one can compare. We've also sent challenger players into ELO Hell 714 times and counting, where they commentate how to carry live. They also respond to all questions asked. Sign up today for as little as $6.99 a month if you are serious about improving. Anyway, that's a wrap on this one, lads. See you next time.